Today I will present to you the Brothers Grimm and PIE. We all know the famous duo, the Brothers Grimm, for their classic fairy tale stories such as The Frog Prince, Sleeping Beauty, and Cinderella. But we might know these stories better in the version of Walt Disney. This is the version of Walt Disney of The Frog Prince, of Sleeping Beauty, and Cinderella. But here are some facts that you probably didn't know yet. The Brothers Grimm are not the only siblings of the Grimm family. The Grimm's fairy tales already existed long before the brothers were born. Initially, the Grimm's fairy tales were not meant for children. The work of the Grimm brothers consisted of more than writing fairy tales. Let's start at the beginning. The Brothers Grimm are not the only siblings of the Grimm family. Who are they then? Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm were born at the end of the 18th century in Hanau near Frankfurt. The Grimm's family was an elaborate family of 9 children. Their lives were fortunate and blissful until the day their father died. They had to move from their beloved home on the countryside into a narrow house. Nevertheless, the brothers went on to study law at university. Sadly enough, they had to quit their studies after the loss of their mother, and they became librarians in order to support their brothers and sisters. The Brothers Grimm are known as the Inseparable Two, but they are not twin brothers. They are 1 year apart in age and very different. Jacob is the more quiet and introverted brother of the two, while Wilhelm is warmer but physically weaker because of heart problems. Jacob is the more academic brother. He was the one who did a lot of research on the theories of language and grammar. Wilhelm was more interested in literature. He constantly edited and revised the stories of the Grimm fairy tales. The brothers are the perfect yin and yang example. Their differences in personalities were the reason why they complemented each other so well. Fact number 2. The Grimm's fairy tales already existed long before the brothers were born. The brothers were very passionate about German folklore. They started doing research on similar words in different languages. As part of their research, they collected folk tales that were passed down orally from generation to generation. They interviewed relatives, friends, and even guests about these tales. In 1812, Jacob and Wilhelm published 86 of the stories they collected in their classic Grimm's fairy tales. The next fact gives us more information about the Grimm's fairy tales that, initially, were not meant for children. The stories were not child-friendly at all. They were very cruel, and the main themes were abduction, loss, and even death. I will give you an example that will make you understand how cruel these stories actually were. Cinderella's stepsisters cut off their toes and heels to fit into the slippers. That's not child-friendly at all. Thank God Walt Disney edited these stories, or otherwise we would have all had traumas during our childhood. The brothers continued to collect fairy tales with limited financial rewards, until the day on which the popularity of children's literature increased. The Grimm's fairy tales were soon established as children's literature. In 1823, their work was translated into English. Because of this huge success, a smaller edition with 50 of their most important tales were published in 1925. To give you an idea of how popular their book was, well, it was the most reprinted book after Luther's Bible. While they were collecting these folk tales, they were also able to investigate phonetic similarities in different languages. This leads us to the fourth fact about the Brothers Grimm. The work of the Grimm brothers consisted of more than writing fairy tales. They worked on two very important projects, Grimm's Law and Der Grimm. In 1838, the brothers started the project Der Grimm. Der Grimm could be compared to the Oxford English Dictionary. Jacob and Wilhelm wanted to implement the usage of every German word in one book. They thought the task would take them 10 years. When Wilhelm died in 1859, they were still working on the letter B. When Jacob died in 1864, he only reached the letter F. Academics continued their work, and it wasn't until 1961, more than a century later, that this project was completed. In 1819, Jacob set one of the earliest and most important linguistic laws. He gave linguistics a sound basis. Grimm's law tells us that consonants of different Indo-European languages relate. For example, the P changes into F. Pater in Latin becomes father in English. There are 10 main language families. Jacob Grimm, as well as many other professors, linked all the languages of Europe with some from Western Asia and Northern India into one large language family, PIE, which stands for Proto-Indo-European. We believe that 5,000 years ago, when tribes migrated through Europe and Asia, PIE split into a number of dialects, and in time these developed into separate languages. The Brothers Grimm are the reason why our childhood was so resourceful and favorable, but besides that, they have set a huge example in linguistics. Amen to that.